assuming they are on Earth, Douglas, do you think they're faking it with just a camera, or do you think they've actually got a Mars rover there, the whole thing simulated, and so the images are coming from the rover? Or do you think it's just a guy with a camera and a tripod? They can insert the bit of the rover that's seen.
They're using all the techniques. Sometimes the rover's there, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes they're using CGI to stitch together various components to create a realistic landscape.
Now, when we've been recording these shows all about the Mars Rover missions and the fact that they may have been faked, an article appeared in Mail Online and in other mainstream publications entitled "I Saw Men Walking on Mars in 1979. Former NASA employee claims there was a secret manned mission to the Red Planet." So this is somebody who's rang Coast to Coast AM, which is an American radio program, and I think this caller called Jackie. This call was at least as long ago as 2007. Because it was George Norrie interviewing John Lear, and the last time John Lear was on that radio program was 2007. So they've dragged up this story from over 7 years ago of a woman who claimed to work for NASA and who said that some of the Viking images had people in them. But it seems dubious to me because this person describes moving images and also says that when the Viking craft was moving around the surface of Mars, well, in fact it wasn't, it was a stationary lander. So I'm very skeptical of this story, Douglas, but mainstream media have put this up strangely when we are putting out this research. One aspect that I particularly objected to in this article, it says conspiracy forums have been set ablaze this week after a lady claiming to be a former NASA employee said she had seen humans on Mars. Well, it is bullshit, because this call took place at least as long ago as 2007. So conspiracy forums have not been set ablaze this week. Some people may have been talking about it on the internet because they put it in Mail Online and in other mainstream publications. Certainly any person who read this article and thought there was at least some truth in it, that would then muddy the waters for this, because this does not mention the theory that the Mars rovers never left the Earth and the photographs are coming back from Earth. What it's saying is, hey, someone at NASA saw a person in one of the Viking images. That means there's a secret space program and people are walking around Mars. So it's not questioning for 1 minute the fact that Viking might not be on Mars, which is why it's disinfo, in my opinion.
The problem, I think, is that the Daily Mail have tried to attach that story to a really bizarre story about nuclear explosions on Mars. So they seem to try to lump her in with with a very bizarre story.
As I said, we'll come on to the Mars Society. Why does NASA need a separate organisation, completely separate, to run these Mars analog sites, where they're doing all of this research for the rovers and testing components and this kind of thing? But this Mars Society, it actually says on the internet that it's not a company. It is a not-for-profit organisation and is funded fully by American organisations, which I would imagine means NASA. So they've created this separate organisation called the Mars Society, which is running all of these Mars analog stations. So why do they need a separate organisation? And it's run by this guy, Dr. Robert Zubrin, founder of the Mars Society.
But yes, the Mars Society does pop up in all the right places to be orchestrating some kind of deception.
You know, we could comment on some of his lectures. Have you seen any of them, Andrew?
I've heard him on Coast to Coast, but I've not seen his lectures, so no, I can't really comment on those.
Right. Well, Zubrin is sort of a proponent of manned Mars missions. So what he's campaigning for is to try and get the funding and the motivation to build rockets that can get to Mars, create some sort of little colony, and then get back safely. And he goes into all of the logistics as to how many spacecraft you'd need, the fact that you need to create artificial gravity on the way to Mars by spinning it round and creating gravity. So, but if you want my view on it, his lectures are just like a pipe dream.
I'm going to talk humans to Mars within a decade, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think it would have to be done in that kind of time frame if you're going to do it. I'm going to talk at some length as to how I think it could be done. In fact, I'm going to show you 2 different ways it could be done. Humans to Mars within a decade, okay? Is that really possible? NASA's current, timeline is to do it around the year 2047. Mars Direct was actually conceived by a team led by me and another engineer named David Baker at Martin Marietta, which became Lockheed Martin, in 1990. This is the mission sequence chart for the Mars Direct plan. You can launch to Mars every 2 years, and we're going to be launching 2 boosters every 2 years to Mars in order to do this. Well, first of all, any space operation requires an appropriate launch vehicle. And we set ourselves the task of designing one in the Saturn V class out of available technology, shuttle technology. So you have 4 shuttle main engines, a couple of solids, the external tank core, hydrogen oxygen upper stage, and a 10-meter fairing, or 33 feet if you work at Lockheed Martin. And this could lift 120 tons to low Earth orbit. But more importantly, it could use this upper stage to send 47 tons on direct trans-Mars injection or 59 tons on trans-lunar injection. And that is how we wanted to do the mission. Just lift and throw and let it go. Send the payload to the planet with the same booster that launched it in the first place. That's how we've done every real unmanned planetary mission. That's how we did the real Apollo missions to the moon. No one's ever done a mission to anywhere by lifting things to the space station and waiting for the interplanetary cruiser to return from Saturn and be refitted to load the payload on it and then go back out. No, just lift and throw and let it go. And RV. And what this is a little rocket ship for returning from Mars to Earth in the terminal stage of the mission. But no one's in it when it goes out the first time. Or a crew of 4 for a 6-month voyage from Mars back to Earth, landing site number 3. So this is an actual photograph of the base. What you see here, here's the Earth return vehicle. There's the cabin, the 2 propulsion stages, the intakes for the chemical processing unit, which is built into the landing stage that acts as the takeoff pad for the rest of it. Here's the reactor and the crater in the background, the habitat, upper stage where they live, the upper deck where they live. Lower deck is the garage for the little pressurized rover, a couple of solar panels, uses backup power if you have to turn the reactor off. You also have backup power by running the engine of the rover or the light truck, which may be hard to see, but it's sitting over here. It's an unpressurized vehicle, which is also the backup for this one. And then this thing here is an inflatable greenhouse. This is not a mission critical element. It's an experiment in learning how to grow crops on Mars in Martian soil, Martian sunlight, Martian gravity, Martian water for the benefit of future missions and future bases. Now, after a number of these missions have occurred in different places, you'll know where you want to develop a major base, and you could do that by landing a lot of the HABs in the same place and mating them up. These are second-generation HABs here who landing legs can articulate not only up and down, but also side to side.
Using rocket technology to get manned missions to Mars, I think I don't think they would achieve it with rockets. They need something more advanced. And I suspect that the whole ethos of what he's doing masks the secret space program, which we've covered in other.
Yes.
In other.
Yes, and I mean when I read this Mars Society in your document, I was familiar with Zubrin, but I didn't really know. I just thought he was just like some space enthusiast. I did not know that they were directly involved with managing some of these sites, and that is very peculiar. And the thing that I'd add to that is that, again, what some people don't realise is that a lot of these Mars images have been through a private company before they get to the public. That's mainly in Space Science Systems at MSSS. Why are these images being released through a private company before they're available for public consumption? That's another huge question.
And Zubrin did work for Lockheed Martin, who developed secret aircraft, and I wasn't able to find out what he actually did when he worked for Lockheed Martin. I've picked out a quote from one of Zubrin's lectures where he says, "The idea that we cannot go to Mars until much more advanced propulsion systems that can get us to Mars in 30 days is is not a valid argument, and I believe it is disingenuous as well. Now, I find that 30 days quote very interesting, because when I give my lecture about Ed Fouché's TR3B, I suggested that they've already got the capability to get to Mars within 4 weeks. It's a very similar time period.
It is, isn't it?
So does Zubrin know something that he's not letting on? Because all of his lectures are based on rocket technology and nothing more advanced than that. So,
I mean, that brings also, I think there's another group called the Planetary Society, which also has, I think, a similar kind of language about space exploration in general. And I know that one of the people that's associated with that is Robert Picardo. So this is something I've got from Carl James, and he's been involved with people at JPL as well, Robert Picardo, and he played the holographic Doctor in Star Trek Voyager. So that's a connection worth looking into, and how that, I think we're sort of just touching on a whole sort of other area of how this perception management it operates. With these things like the Mars Society, the Planetary Society, which seem like these benign, organisations intended to promote interest in the space program, but they don't really. They'll poo-poo any idea that there's secret stuff is there.
Yeah. Do you think this could be masking a secret space program?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah.